welcome to episode 37 of Abbott and Costello Meet the Podcast, Dance With Me, Henry. I'm Jerry Shario, and as always, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you a gentleman, and I use the term loosely, actor, director, playwright, co-author of the book, The Annotated Abbott and Costello, a man who takes pride in what he does, but still doesn't take personal checks, Nick Santamaria.
But I do take wheat checks and rice checks. As a, serial killer. Hi, Jerry. You said loosely, and I was going to say I love loosely. In a way, I'm glad I didn't say it.
And so am I.
Too late. As Groucho used to say. So anyway, this is episode number 37. I can't believe it. You know? 2 more episodes and we're like Jack Benny. That's amazing. We're talking about Dance With Me, Henry, a rather interesting film, and one that it's like our country today. It causes great division in people. Some people like it, some people hate it. Very few are in the middle. It's an interesting film. Let's start this way. I want to say, Jerry, hello, and it's been 2 weeks, and I know today you had an adventure. Do you want to tell us what you did this morning?
Yeah, our family has been doing this fundraising walk for a number of years now. It's for type 1 diabetes research. And it's a fundraiser, 3-mile walk, literally a walk in the park, our major park downtown here in Spokane. And we take a nice 3-mile stroll and raise some money at the same time.
That's wonderful.
I'm happy to say, first of all, the organization that we do it for, we started with them primarily because their ratio of funds raised to actually sent toward research, 80% of what they bring in
That's
goes
incredible.
to research. Yeah. So we were very happy with that.
I was going to say, it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
When you hear about the percentage that goes to research, or when you hear about like Goodwill places and you hear about the CEOs and how much money they make, and they're not paying anything for their product.
Yep.
It's an amazing scam. It really is. And very little of it gets to the poor, like they say. But anyway, so that's a wonderful thing that you do, Jerry. I remember last year when you did it, and we discussed it then. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am broadcasting from Keystone, South Dakota, believe it or not, where yesterday it was 85 degrees, and today it's 45 degrees. It dropped 40 degrees in one day. It's like they tied an anvil to fall, and it just drops on this place. It just, and oh, look, it's fall. Where's my jacket? So I took a rather chilly walk this morning, and I didn't especially dress for this weather. I just want to mention very quickly, I'm going to get it out of the way. I mentioned last week that I was part of a television show that was shooting in Louisville, Kentucky. I was going to be in all episodes. Well, I did the first week and nearly killed myself. I did not realize how difficult the job was. I was 15 years older than the oldest person in the show and on the set. And I had the most physically taxing job. I had to change into like 10 costume changes throughout a 12-hour day with one break. And we're talking about tweed jackets, sweaters, sweatshirts under the television lights. I even took a fall at one point. I tripped over a light stand and nearly hit my head again. I had to tell them the next day that I can't continue. I just couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You get to a point in your life where you say, you know what? I could do that a few years ago, but I can't do it now. So I feel like I've cleared the way. I feel great that I'm out of it. I'm in the first 6 episodes, so you could see those. But other than that, I have no qualms and no regrets. So let's move on. I'm at Mount Rushmore. I could walk to the exit for Mount Rushmore. It was so beautiful. I went yesterday, and it was just gorgeous, just beautiful, so impressive. And I went to see Crazy Horse, too, what there is of him. That is really an unfinished project. I looked out at it and I asked one of the guides there, I said, why is there construction stuff up there? on the mountain? They said, because they're still working on it. In our lifetime, we will not see the finish. In fact, maybe the next two lifetimes, the next two generations, there's so much work to do. But
Wow.
anyway, here I am. I'm in South Dakota. It's cold, and we're here. So let's talk about this movie. This
Yes.
is a biggie. This is a biggie in their careers. This was the end of the line. They had meetings with Universal. Universal wanted to sign them to another contract, and Abbott and Costello asked for too much money. And they said, no, sorry. Okay, bye bye. I don't think they were upset about that because they always felt they were mistreated by Universal,
Mm.
and they were. They were not given the same care that comedians like Bob Hope and Martin and Lewis and Danny Kaye got. They were still second tier citizens, and they were looking to go out on their own, and I don't blame them at all. So they finished Meet the Mummy at
Hmm.
Universal. That was 1955. And this movie didn't start shooting until May 23rd, 1956. So it was really a long time in between movies, but I think they were looking for the deal they wanted to make. If you look at the opening credits, underneath the title is copyright Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. So they owned the film. A guy named Bob Goldstein produced it for them. And they got back who I thought was their favorite director. And I think that's true because they made the choice this time. And it was Charlie Barton, who hadn't been with the boys since Meet the Killer in 49. So it was quite a time they had with Charlie Lamont and Gene Yarborough. But now they're back with Charlie Barton. And I think it's one of the reasons the movie is good is Charlie Barton. Charlie Barton came aboard when they started doing more situational stories, post war. You know, the early movies were delightful and they were joyful and they were, Andrew Sisters and let's stop to do a sketch and let's do this and whatever. It was all willy nilly craziness. And then the war happened, and all of a sudden everybody went, nah, let's get serious. We want more realistic things. So
Hmm.
they became more situational and eventually more slapstick, more physical than verbal. So it was an interesting transition for them. And this leads us to Dance With Me, Henry, which was budgeted. Are you ready? You know, we've been talking about the budgets. Most of their budgets were in the $700,000 place. If they were making a lesser film, it would be 600,000. This was $450,000. That
Wow.
is, yeah, that is a B movie budget. And I'm sure they were looking to make as much money as possible, so they kept it low. There were no big special effects other than Bud and Lou's salary. The biggest cost was building Kittyland right there at the old Pathé RKO studios in Culver City. That's where they were shooting. And the movie was 80 minutes long, took a month to shoot. Charlie brought it in under schedule and under budget, believe it or not. And it was released on December 14th, 1956. And that's a interesting time that we will get to when we finish talking about the film. Okay, let's talk about the creative people in this film. The story. This is all in our book, by the way, The Annotated Abbott and Costello. The story is by two people, believe it or not, William Kozlenko and Laszlo Kardos. Now, I didn't get much on Kozlenko. He was mostly in story construction in movies, but mostly he was an editor, a book editor. He put together anthologies of one act plays. These books I would see in the library all the time. He was responsible for. He was also a founding editor of One Act Play magazine. And that was his thing. That's what he did. He was born in 1907 and passed away in 1984. It's really all I know about him. But Laszlo Kardos, huh, born in 1905 in Budapest, Hungary, and I am. He was a director, a writer, an editor. He was he was the brother-in-law of Joe Pasternak. Now I don't know if you've heard of Joe Pasternak, but he was a big producer at Universal during the 30s and early 40s into the mid 40s. He was the man responsible for Deanna Durbin and those movies, which were hugely successful. And then he went over to MGM, where he was he was sort of the I think of him as the B unit musical guy. There was
Hmm.
Arthur Freed, who had Vincent Minnelli and Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, and, Vera Ellen and everybody. And then there was Joe Pasternak, who had Debbie Reynolds and Bobby Van, these guys. But anyway, Joe made the lesser musicals at MGM. Not bad, but they weren't Arthur Freed quality. But anyway, he was the brother-in-law, so he got to direct two films at MGM: The Strip with I believe Mickey Rooney, and Small Town Girl, which is I believe Jane Powell and Bobby Van. But but that was for MGM. He also, and this is my favorite thing about Laszlo Cardos. Laszlo Cardos, my I don't know what happened, but his sister was the second and last wife of S.Z. Cuddles Zakal.
Huh.
Now, do you remember S.Z. Cuddles Zakal?
Oh, yeah.
And squeeze his cheeks, and they would stretch out to Burbank. He was married to his sister. I just find that amazing. I'm sure she got a lot of cuddles. Unfortunately, he died very young, Laszlo Cardos. He died in 1962 at the age of 56. Now, the main writer, there's only one writer on this movie. He took this story that the two Budapest people wrote, and Devry Freeman. Devry Freeman, born in New York City in 1913, lived for 92 years, died in 2005. Interesting career. He mostly wrote short stories for magazines like the Saturday Evening Post, Life magazine when it was a humor magazine, Liberty magazine, and all of those, very high class, witty, the things that the Algonquin Roundtable were doing. He was also a screenwriter and a TV producer, an executive at CBS, and a novelist. And we'll get to that in a minute. But mostly, what he's mostly remembered for is he was a union activist and one of the founding members of the Writers Guild of
Hmm.
America. So that's an amazing thing. He went to Brooklyn College. When World War II rolled around, he volunteered and he was placed in the Armed Forces Radio Unit, where he wrote training and entertainment films for the soldiers. And he also co founded the Navy version of the Armed Forces Radio Unit. I used to
Hmm.
do commercials for them. And when he got home, he wrote for radio. He wrote for Fanny Brice, Baby Schnooks. I always say Schnooks, but that's like an insult. It's Baby Snooks. I guess short for Snookums.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I just put that together for the first time. Snookums, Snooks. Okay, I'll ruminate on that after we get done, and then I'll clean up. I may call a cleaning woman. I'm not sure. So anyway, he started writing screenplays at MGM and other places. He made The Fuller Brushman, probably my favorite Red Skelton movie. That was 1948. He wrote Miss Grant Takes Richmond in 1949. That was a sort of a preview for Lucille Ball and her
Hmm.
comedy chops before she took on I Love Lucy. He wrote The First Traveling Saleslady with Ginger Rogers and Carol Channing. He didn't write it with them; they were in it. He did. He did a lot of TV, from Playhouse 90 to the Loretta Young Show. He created Sugarfoot, starring Will Hutchins, the western. He
Huh.
created it. He became an executive at CBS for 3 years, and in that 3 years, he was responsible for the upkeep of the Beverly Hillbillies, Dick Van Dyke, Jack Benny, I Love Lucy, and Sea Hunt.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Sea Hunt? Um, there's all these great comedies, and all of a sudden, Sea Hunt. In later years, he wrote a novel called Father Sky, and that was turned into a 1981 film, a hit film called Taps. I don't know if you remember, it was about the military school, and the
Yeah.
students take over. George C. Scott, Sean Penn, Tim Hutton,
Yep.
even Tom Cruise shows up in it. So he wrote that novel. So that was our creative team. That's Devry Freeman and his two Hungarian goulashes. And that's it. So why don't we get to the movie now that we've gone through everybody? We will get
Alrighty.
to cast members as we get to them. Now, I wanted to mention something right off the top. This movie begins with strains from the song Dance With Me, Henry.
Hmm.
Now, what is the song Dance With Me, Henry? By this time, when this movie was released in December of 1956, the song was already a year and a half old. It was already in the past. So it was, the reference was kind of lost at the
Yeah.
time. The song itself was originally called The Wallflower, and it was written by Hank Ballard, Johnny Otis, and Etta James, who had the first recording of it.
Hmm.
It didn't get full white attention until it was recorded by the very white Georgia Gibbs, known as Her Nibs Georgia Gibbs, who has some wonderful stories about working with Danny Kaye live on stage. It's devastating. We'll
Wow.
get around to that someday when we do more open comedy talk. We'll talk about Danny Kaye, the troublesome Danny Kaye. So that was the song "Dance with Me, Henry." When I was a kid, they used to show movies all day on Sunday. 11:30 to 1 was Abbott and Costello. 1 to 3 was the Channel 5 movie. 3 to 5 was the second Channel 5 movie. 5 to 7 on Channel 11, WPIX, was the 5 o'clock movie. And more often than not, they delved into the Samuel Goldwyn library. And I
Hmm.
saw a lot of his stuff from the late 40s and early 50s. Now, it wasn't huge stuff, like Best Years of Our Lives and Guys and Dolls and all that stuff. These were like almost like little movies, and they were very, very good stories, human stories. But the opening titles were always kind of the same. It always started sounding and looking almost like a religious movie. And it's hard to explain this unless you watch these movies. This movie, Dance with Me, Henry, starts exactly the same way. If
Yep.
my eyes were closed and I were listening, or even if they took the titles away and just showed the opening card, I think I was watching a Samuel Goldwyn movie from the early 50s. So right away, we know we're in a different ballpark with the boys. It's serious sounding music that goes with it. And Joe Adamson, my dear friend Joe Adamson, in his book, Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Sometimes Zeppo, still the greatest book ever written about the Marx Brothers,
Yep.
he says that when Bugs Bunny in the comic books and in the cartoons shows up as a suburban homeowner, we know the golden age of comedy was dead, right?
Hmm.
It happened with Bugs Bunny. It happened with Popeye. All of a sudden, he's a homeowner in the suburbs.
Yep.
Um, and this movie opens. The very first shot is a suburban house with a white picket fence. And who should come running out the front door? Lou Costello. And he's frantic. He's frantic. He's running. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He's frantic. So he runs down the street. It's actually his brother, Pat, who actually knows how to run like Lou Costello. Not like Vic Parks, who's like waving his arms and doing like the samba. Pat is doing most of the running in this scene. And where is Lou, who is Lou Henry? Dance with me, Henry, Lou Henry.
Hmm.
Where's he going? He is going to the orphanage. And I'm turning the pages here because I wrote down the name of the orphanage because I liked it. Listen to all these notes. I have like 20 pages, both sides. Ready?
Yes.
The Guiding Light Orphanage. The Guiding Light. So it's like a soap opera orphanage. I guess. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
guess it could have been worse. It could have been the Days of Our Lives orphanage, I mean,
Or General Hospital. That would change the whole tone of the film. He's running to the hospital. you know? Oh well. Anyway, so he's at the orphanage. We cut to the inside, and it's being run by Father, I forget his name, Malavi or Mahavan.
yeah,
Father,
it
we'll
was an
call him,
odd name. Yeah.
yeah, we'll call him Father Mahoivan. And he's talking to the little boy that Lou is upset about. This is Rusty Hamer, plays the little boy. Now, if you are a fan of sitcoms from the 1950s and 60s, you watched Make Room for Daddy, and that was Danny Thomas's sitcom. And his son was played by Rusty Hamer, born in 1947 in Tenafly, New Jersey. Real name Russell Craig Hamer. You figure Russell, that's where they got Rusty. As a child, a very young child, he got into community theater in New Jersey. And he and his brother did very well with that. They used to get cast in all these shows. Eventually, they moved to Los Angeles, and his father died not long afterwards. So mom was supporting the kids. He went to an audition with his brother John, and they were seen by an agent. And the agent signed Rusty. The next thing you know, he was in a 3D film called Fort Ty in 1953. and that was with George Montgomery. And Danny Thomas's secretary saw him in a play. He was still doing plays and did a spit take. She was the proxy for Danny Thomas and told Danny about this kid. He was remarkable. He was only 6 years old. Danny signed him like on the spot. Usually it's on a contract, but this was on a spot. This was his dog. He signed his dog. Let me put it that way. And Thomas, from that moment on, just couldn't get over how professional this kid was. You could give him changes in the script like 5 minutes before they were shooting, and he would know them all. He was really amazing. And I always loved him on that show. He was a real wise guy, a real Weisenheimer. Unfortunately, in this film, he plays Duffer, a kid that Lou adopted, his stepson. But Duffer doesn't have that kind of wise guy stuff. He has a few funny lines, in the house later on when Mary Wickes shows up and all that. But mostly he's got kind of treacly dialogue. And he comes off as not like he did on the Danny Thomas show. It's almost like he's out of his element here. And he was doing the Danny Thomas show while he made this film, basically. I think this was his summer off during shooting. So anyway, very, very sad story. He was there from 1953 to 1964, 323 episodes. The kid spent his childhood in front of the camera. He did lots of TV. The last work he did was for Make Room for Granddaddy, which was a failed sitcom in 1970 to 71. Only 24 episodes were shot. Towards the end of the 60s, he couldn't get work anymore, and he became very depressed, started drinking. He became a messenger. Now, in Los Angeles, when you meet a messenger, you know it's an out-of-work actor, basically. And that's what he was doing. And then eventually he decided, I better make a switch, and he became a carpenter's apprentice. That didn't work out. He moved to Louisiana. He worked on an oil rig for Exxon. That didn't work out. Then finally he moved over to where his family was in Louisiana. And his brother had opened a cafe there, and he became a short-order cook. Well, in 1990, he didn't show up. His brother went to look for him, went into his trailer home, and there he was with a bullet wound to his head, a suicide. He was gone. So that's what happens to Rusty Hamer. See what happens when you run away from home? So that was that. That's a sad story. He was so good. He really was.
Oh, yeah.
But also in this scene is someone I owe an apology to, and that's Frank Wilcox. He plays Father Mahoivan. And in the episode Keystone Cops, I kept referring to him as Frank Randall. And I was corrected by our listeners, and thank you very much for that. But Frank Randall was this British music hall comedian from the 30s and 40s whose specialty was spitting out his teeth. And I mean, his whole set of teeth. He was disgusting, but funny. But anyway, so Frank Wilcox is his name. And he was born, I love his middle name, Frank Reppy, Reppy. Reppy? It's like something you would call your agent when you're familiar with him. Frank Reppy Wilcox, born in 1907 in DeSoto, Missouri. And when he was young, his family moved to Atchison, Kansas, right next to the Topeka and Santa Fe. Frank worked as an oil company sales manager. But that was boring. He was doing plays this whole time, not full time, but eventually he moved to Los Angeles. He joined the Pasadena Playhouse. He went back and forth to New York, to Broadway. Between 1930 and 1947, he did about 20 Broadway shows. Incredible. And wait, these titles. He was in the original You Can't Take It With You, the Georges Kaufman Moss Hart show.
Yeah.
He was in it for 2 years, 36 to 38. That was his really big one in New York. He was in about 166 films. During Warner Brothers' late 30s, early 40s, they started remaking in their B unit, their B movie unit. They started remaking movies they made in the early 30s. And Frank Wilcox was a large part of that stock company. So he was signed to Warner Brothers in the late 30s, and he started making these remakes. And of course, they were B movie versions. Sometimes I'll be watching a movie from this era, and I'll think, I've seen this movie. but it wasn't with, McDonald Carey. It was with Paul Muni, for crying out loud. So these are weird films. They're very weird hybrid films. He went into the Navy in World War II. He served on a destroyer that whole time. When he got out of the service, he started doing movies again. Did, like I said, 166 of them. He did about 1 million TV shows. He did the first 5 seasons of the Beverly Hillbillies as John Brewster, the oil executive. His last TV show was in Kung Fu in 1973. And his last film, are you ready? The $1 Million Duck in 1971. He passed away in 1974 at the age of 66. So that's my apologies to Frank Wilcox for calling him Frank Randall. But here he is as Father Mahoivan talking to young Rusty Hamer. And Lou runs in and just says, "Oh, I was in the neighborhood." He doesn't want Rusty to know that he's concerned. And he lays on the guilt a bit, and everything turns around. They end up hugging each other, and it's just really warm and sweet. And it's kind of how you picture Lou Costello, basically, with children. That's one of the reasons I like this movie. That side of him comes out, and it's a real side of him. So, as they're as this is being settled, who should run in but Bud Abbott, playing Bud Flick. Now, Bud, he's the layered character in this one. He's trouble. He's trouble. He runs in. He's got no mustache all of a sudden. I think he's about 20 pounds heavier than I've ever seen him. And he's jowly. He looks older without the mustache. And I hate to say this, folks. I'm not picking on him. This is actually the truth. He's slurry. His timing is a little off. He sometimes takes a beat before he says a line when he actually should be saying the line where the beat is. It's not always easy to watch. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But he does comport himself well. He comes in. He's actually kind of funny. If you could overlook that stuff, he's kind of funny because he's such a mess in this movie. Basically, he owes $20,000 in gambling debts to Big Frank. Big Frank runs all the crime in town and will kill him, basically. And he needs Lou to help him out of this mess. So it's not like the old days where Lou needed Bud, to get him out of a mess. It's interesting where they are at this point. But here Bud is really in trouble because something happened down at Kittyland, which is the amusement park that Lou owns. And I love also in this movie, part of the change is that Lou is a responsible business owner. He's actually a responsible man. And not just a responsible man, but a charitable man, a man who has a family that he takes care of, not to mention a dog and a parrot. The dog is Dogface and the parrot is Birdbrain, which I always liked. So Bud and Lou actually have some crosstalk here in Father Mahoivan's office, and we should listen to that.
Pardon us, Father. Come on, Lou, hurry up.
Here. What's up?
Plenty.
Now, who's watching Kittyland?
Certainly not you. You ran out.
Oh, what are you doing here?
Now, don't start asking questions.
Why shouldn't I?
Now, that's a question.
What's a question?
Now, that's another question. Now, we're just wasting our time. I give up a promising career just to be his partner.
You talking about promise. You promised to quit gambling and pay all your debts. That's the only reason why I brought him in with me, Father. Just so he could pay the $20,000 that he owes to the bookies.
Lou! You say that to the father? You know I wouldn't gamble on a sure thing.
Oh, yeah?
You want to bet?
No.
Come on.
Wait a minute. You haven't told me what's wrong.
Everything is wrong, and it's all your fault.
Why is it my fault? I'm not even there.
When you're not there, it's all wrong. Now, come on, maybe we can beat the cops.
The cops?
Yeah.
What are they doing there?
More questions. Pardon us, Father. We'll see you later. Come on, we've got things to do. Hurry.
Okay, so once Bud gets Lou back to Kittyland to help him with this problem, basically, one of the rides has run amok. And Bud does not know how to turn it off, and the kids are scared, and all of the parents are nervous because it's just been going around and around and around. So Lou shows up, and this is kind of cute. he goes over and he tries the brake, and Bud says, "No, I've already tried that." And Lou walks over to this tiny little compartment, opens it up, pulls a switch, and everything stops. So, but Bud is like, "Why did you tell me?" What I like about Bud when he gets mad is that he takes his hat and he twists it around on his head as he gets frustrated. And it's nice. It's a nice move. It's
Yeah.
layered Bud, you know? Bud doesn't often get to do stuff like that. So anyway, so Lou saves the day, basically. So this begins everything. Bud is in big trouble. He really is. His life is on the line. And what is happening is that Big Frank, him and his men have robbed the bank. They have $200,000 in marked bills that they need to launder. And they want Bud to take the $200,000 to Chicago to the boys over there and launder the money. Now, Bud knows that he'd probably get arrested doing this and spend the rest of his life in prison, and he does not want to do this. So, this is where the problem is. This is the big rub in this movie. And it's an honest to goodness threat, just as much as Frankenstein was, as much as the killer was, or the mummy, any of the monsters that they faced. These guys are killers, and they prove it throughout the movie. Very gun crazy. That's the story going on. Now, in the meantime, there's the other story where Lou is being threatened by the welfare people, represented by Miss Mayflower. No, he calls her Miss Mayflower. Miss Maybelline? What's her name?
I thought it was Mayflower.
No, he calls her that at the end as a joke. I can't remember her name. Miss Mayberry. Miss Mayberry.
There we go.
Yeah. And she wants to take the children away because she doesn't think Lou is a good father. And she's a real pain in the neck. This is like a role that I could see Margaret Hamilton playing also, you know, showing up and just spoiling everyone's fun. So she's a pain in the neck. She even shows up at Kittyland while Bud and Lou are there. And this is very funny. Lou's daughter, played by Gigi Perot, and it's not Gigi, it's Gigi. I happened to talk to her on the phone. I interviewed her for our book. And all she could tell me is that she loved Charlie Barton and did this movie because he recommended her. And she loved working with Lou. And she doesn't remember working with Bud at all. And that just tells me that Bud was older. Bud was an epileptic and was frightened and stayed to himself mostly. I don't think there was any card playing during the making of this film. Her boyfriend is Bud's nephew, Ernie. And Ernie is, I call him the oogly googly boy. He plays a ukulele like most great people do. And he he had quite a history. His name was, he's dead now, Ron Hargrave. And he was born in Brooklyn, New York, like most great ukulele players. And that was in 1929. He lived to be 93. He passed away recently, 2023. He was born to vaudevillians, parents. They moved to LA when they couldn't get any work in vaudeville anymore. They moved to LA in 1936. Now, here's what happened. He got really good on the ukulele, and he picked up something called rockabilly. And he was one of the first people to utilize rockabilly in his performances. And he eventually wrote songs for Jerry Lee Lewis. He wrote the song High School Confidential, a song called Latch On for Jerry Lee Lewis, and others. While he was in the Army in the 1950s, at some function, he met Lou's daughter, Carol, and they became close friends. They didn't hit it off like boyfriend, girlfriend, but they became friends. And he met Lou through Carol, and Carol signed him up to a management contract like Lou would do, and got him a contract at MGM Records. And this guy was a rockabilly guy. He was also one of two people, I forget the first one, but he was one of two people to use the kind of language he uses in this movie, the hipster language, the rock and roll language, the groovy. Yeah, all that stuff. It was quite innovative at the time. So Devery Freeman came up with all of that. So anyway, he was quite the ukulele player, and he was known for showing up at different places, like different stores, different places, and he would do impromptu ukulele shows for people, and they would show up, and everybody would love it. So
Hmm.
anyway, that's Ron Hargrave, and he's a lot of fun in this movie. So Miss Mayberry shows up at Kittyland. Miss Mayberry is looking for Lou. Lou is hiding from her, and he goes into the recording booth where Ernie is there playing his ukulele, and he's telling him to shut up, and he won't shut up, and he keeps playing louder and louder, and blah blah blah. Finally, Lou breaks the ukulele, and when Miss Mayberry hears this, her and Bud come into the recording booth, and Lou is sitting on him, subduing him and wanting to like punch him basically. And Miss Mayberry sees this, and it's not very good, but the dialogue here is funny, and I think we should play this.
Ah! Oh, hello, Miss Mayberry. What a surprise. Welcome to Kittyland.
What are you doing to that boy?
Sit down.
Did it ever occur to you that you might be hurting him?
It occurs to me all the time.
I've never witnessed such brutality, not in all my years.
Wow, that's a long time.
What was that?
I mean, don't get excited. I mean, after all, this boy is a personal nephew to my partner, Bud. Is that right, Bud?
Yeah, I'd let him sit on Ernie all the time.
Well, it's a disgrace. Such lack of dignity. And that letter you wrote the district attorney, calling me a flannel-eared floozy.
I didn't know your name at the time.
Well, you'll know it before I am through, Mr. Henry, and you'll never forget it.
You know, they even repeat a Chico Marx joke in this movie. Man, Sherry, she's got it. Yeah, and she's going to keep it. Why not? The Marx Brothers used
Yeah.
it 25 years earlier. So, you know, it was time to shake it out and dust it off. So anyway, she sees Lou doing something bad to a younger person again, and this does not sit well, so to speak, with Miss Mayberry. So what happens, Miss Mayberry says she's going to come to the house that night to just check them all out. And when I say them all, Lou has adopted Rusty Hamer. His name is Duffer, and Sherry, who is Gigi Perot. So he's got the two children, the dog, the parrot, and he takes care of an old lady who has a drinking problem, who is now in a sanatorium. That's what he says, a sanatorium. And she has left all her old liquor bottles hidden around the house. So you know what that means. When Miss Mayberry comes, not only is she going to see, you know, pandemonium, and we'll get to that, but these liquor bottles come out like out of closets. The dog comes out with one in his mouth. It doesn't sit well with Miss Mayberry. So anyway, not only does Miss Mayberry show up, but Bud shows up, and he's in trouble again. The gangsters are after him. And he told them to meet him there that night while Miss Mayberry is there, you know. So Lou tells him, you can't do this. I've got Miss Mayberry, blah, blah, blah. And he says, it's okay. I'll go tell them. I'll meet them, and, you know, I'll tell them not to come. But who should come but the two gangsters? Bud must have missed them. And these guys show up, and they're like 6'5", both of them, and they're both like, you know, carrying guns, and it's not very nice, you know. And Miss Mayberry's listening to them on the phone. They're talking to their bookies. It's just not good. At one point, one of them looks at Miss Mayberry, who is played by Mary Wickes, by the way, who is really tall and skinny, you know, and hadn't been with the boys since Who Done It. But if you want to know about Mary Wickes' background, just go back to Who Done It. I think it's episode 10, and I talk about her history. But here she is looking at these gangsters, and the gangsters look at them, and one says, she's a slick chick. Yeah, pretty too. And Lou says, have you guys been drinking? Lou is very good in this scene. I have to say, this entire scene is his. And he shows us what a 1950s TV show Lou would be. And it works. It would have been the Lou Costello show or whatever. Maybe Bud as the neighbor, you know, whatever. But he proves in this movie that he can do it. So anyway, Miss Mayberry goes a little too far. Lou meets up with Ernie in the kitchen. He comes back with his ukulele. And again, the same thing happens. Lou tries to subdue him by sitting on him. And of course, Miss Mayberry catches him again. It's just very funny. You know, why are you sitting on that boy again? So anyway, it turns out that Miss Mayberry does not like what she sees. Lou actually throws her out, which is very satisfying. And it's a very well acted scene by Lou. You could see he's being a bit of a wise guy. calling her names and stuff. But overriding that is his anger at her, but also there's a little fear that he shouldn't be doing this. He could be losing the children. So with
Hmm.
those three layers, he plays this scene, and it's beautifully done. So anyway, things are low, things are bad. Bud owes money. Miss Mayberry's going to take away the kids. It's that kind of movie. Lou still gets to do his goofy stuff. I mean, there's still goofy stuff there,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's still some
yeah.
funny dialogue scenes. It's just a more serious movie. It's a more
Hmm.
situational movie. And I'll tell you, the gangster stuff is brutal. It's they're not kidding around here. This is not a movie for children. Basically, it's more for everybody. So we're back at Kittyland, and I have a favorite image of Lou on the train with the conductor's cap, uh, steering the train around the track with all the kids on the cars. It's a nice image. It really is. But anyway, here's where everything just goes to hell. Lou overhears Big Frank, who is at Kittyland now, and he's telling Bud what he needs to do. And Bud, of course, does not want to do it. So when Lou hears that they stole the money and now they want it laundered, he calls the DA and reports it. And the DA is played by Robert Shayne, but they suspect Lou for some reason. I didn't quite get that, to be honest. He kind of held back some of the information, and that made them
Yes.
suspicious. Yeah,
And he
yeah,
also, it's briefly mentioned that he also had been writing letters to the DA about Miss Mayberry and the social welfare people and his
yes,
displeasure, but he's never clear. He's never direct in what he's complaining about.
right. That's right. So they know of him, and they
Yeah.
know he's a bit of a problem. So they suspect him immediately. So Robert Shayne tells him that he's going to come to Kittyland and check things out. And unfortunately, some other people were coming that night, and it was Mushy, who is the henchman to Big Frank, and he hides the money in a treasure chest up by the merry-go-round, where you grab the brass ring. And all the money, the $200,000, is in that treasure chest. Nobody knows it but Mushy. Okay, so here's what happens. They're all at Kittyland, right? It's closed. It's nighttime.
Mm.
Lou is there to meet with the DA. Mushy is there to meet with Bud to give him the money. And all of a sudden, the DA sees Mushy. Mushy sees the DA. They recognize each other and they get into a fight. Now, this is interesting. This whole thing between Bud and Lou. Bud is there to meet Mushy, and he does not want Lou to know that. So he's being very secretive about why he's at the park that time of night. And it's very funny dialogue. And I really would love to play this.
Don't mix me up in any cement.
Don't get excited.
Oh, boy.
What are you doing here this hour of the night?
I was checking.
Checking what?
I was checking a safe so no crooks could crack it open.
But there's nothing in our safe.
I know that, but they don't know that. What are you doing here?
Well, I was sort of doing the same thing.
Checking what?
I wanted to check and make sure they hadn't tampered with the safe.
Yeah, but you said there was nothing in it.
Well, I was going to put my valuables in it.
You haven't got any valuables.
But the crooks don't know that.
Oh, boy. Funny world, isn't it?
You said it. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
Don't look to me like anybody has tampered with it. Lately?
Not even us.
Mm-hmm. Well, you better go home.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I'll stick around and guard the safe.
There's nothing in it.
They don't know that.
Oh, my. But you're right. Well, you can't trust anybody nowadays, so you better go home and I'll guard the safe.
But you'd be guarding nothing.
They don't know that.
But we do.
Oh, my.
Lou, you're forcing me to be frank.
I'm not forcing you to be anybody.
Truth of the matter is, I'm meeting a girl here.
Buddy boy, hardly any girls pass by here. Why don't you try standing over by the drugstore?
Well, I'll think about it.
Oh, my. I heard something.
Oh, that's just your imagination.
It sounded like...
You imagine it.
I guess you're right.
What was that?
I guess that's my imagination. I just heard a gunshot.
Yeah, I heard it too. Go on outside and see what's going on. If you need me, I'll be right in here.
Look, if I need you, I'll meet you out there.
Go on.
Go on. Go on. Go on. Go on.
Go on.
So anyway, they hear a gunshot, and Lou runs out and sees the DA sitting on a Ferris wheel car at the bottom. It's not running. And he runs over and he's talking to the DA until he realizes that the DA is not responding. He's got a bullet hole in his heart. And Mushy is hiding behind Lou. And he hits Lou on the head with his gun, knocks him out, sits him next to the DA, throws the gun into Lou's lap, and then starts the Ferris wheel. So Lou is unconscious. The DA is dead. DA stands for dead on arrival. I just thought of that. So anyway, I wanted to do this because Robert Shayne is a special favorite of mine. He is a Superman guy, and I love Superman guys. We've got two of them in this movie. Let's start with Robert Shayne. Robert Shayne was born Robert Shone Dawe, D-A-W-E. Dawe. He was born in Yonkers, New York, in 1900. Went to Boston University, left in his senior year so his brother could go to school. He lived in Birmingham, Alabama for a while. He wrote ad copy for a woman's clothing store while he appeared in amateur plays at night. When the store closed, he took on acting full-time. He moved to Miami, where he was also a reporter for a local newspaper. And then eventually he made his way to Broadway. In 1931, he was in a show called The Rap. He was in a show called Yellow Jack in 1934. He was in The Cat and the Canary in 1935. He was in White Oaks in 1938 with Ethel Barrymore, Without Love in 1942 with Katharine Hepburn, and that became a movie with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn and Lucille Ball and Keenan Wynn. Wonderful comedy. And then he went to Warner Brothers in 1943. He did Mission to Moscow. He was in Christmas in Connecticut in 1945. In the 50s, he got into more cheesy fare. He was in The Indestructible Man with Lon Chaney Jr. In 1956. He has a great scene with Joe Flynn, Captain Binghamton from McHale's Navy. He's in two Bowery Boys late in the day movies, Hot Shots with Joey Lansing. That was in 1956. These are post-Leo. These are Stanley Clements, Dookie. And the other one was Spook Chasers. And I have that lobby card hanging on my wall. He's in one of my favorite cheesy 50s horror movies, The Giant Claw. Now, if you've never seen The Giant Claw, you haven't lived. The monster is a huge bird marionette, and it looks like a comedy thing. It looks like you can't look at it without laughing. It's hilarious. You have to see The Giant Claw. I think it's on YouTube for free. He was also in possibly, I think this was the very first movie I ever saw in a theater, and I was 3 or 4 years old. It's called Son of Flubber for Disney. And I just remember laughing till I just laughed myself silly when they blew up, and floated around the field. It was Nirvana. Yep. I just loved it. He was also in the movie $1 Million Duck, and his very last film was The Four Deuces in 1975. Now, in Superman, he played Inspector Henderson, but you'll notice in the early episodes, he wasn't on frequently. It was very spotty. And then eventually he became a regular on the show. He was in every episode. What happened was he was in a nasty divorce with his second wife, and she accused him of being a communist. This was picked up by the House Un-America Committee, and he was blacklisted, not fully, but enough to be suspicious. Eventually, they realized that there was no proof whatsoever, and it opened up again, and he got to do all of the Superman episodes.
Oh, man.
I know, isn't that weird? Oh, women. But no, I mean, when they're angry at you, forget it. You get out of the way. Step in front of a train instead. I used to live in the early 80s. I used to live in Studio City in the Valley in Los Angeles. Beautiful neighborhood. And we had the greatest Ralph's supermarket in the world. And I could walk to it. It was a walking distance. And I called it the supermarket of the stars. I used to meet up with Benny Rubin, the comedian, and we'd walk home together. What's his name? Russell Johnson from Gilligan's Island was always there. Ralph Bellamy, Marlon Brando. I mean, these are just a few of the people that I would run into at the store. One of them was Robert Shayne. And he was great. He was so happy to be recognized, especially by a young person, and he was very friendly and very kind. So that's Robert Shayne. Also, Richard Reeves is our other villain. He's mushy in this movie, and he's huge. He's about 6'5", born in Queens, New York in 1912 to wealthy parents. They were very, very wealthy family. He studied music throughout his childhood. And at 18, he actually rebelled in a way, and he became a seaman. He became a sailor. He was on this ship route from New York to Havana. It was the New York to Havana line, and he did that for a while. Eventually, he enlisted in World War II into the Army. He came out a sergeant. He started in films in the late 40s and TV in the early 50s. Always as a mug. He was always a henchman, always a mug. He did Superman. He was on Lucy, I Married Joan, The Munsters, Zorro, Maverick. And in movies, his first appearance was actually as a soldier in This Is the Army, the Irving Berlin show in 1943 that they filmed at Warner Brothers. But then he was in The Long Night in 1947. He was actually in 6 Elvis movies from 1961 to 1966. Blue Hawaii, Fun in Acapulco, Girl Happy, Tickle Me, Harem Scarum, and Frankie and Johnny. Now, at least 4 of those are completely unwatchable. They're just terrible. I like Blue Hawaii. That's a good one. And Girl Happy is kind of fun too. But the other ones, oy. He was also in the notorious Billy the Kid versus Dracula with John Carradine in 1966. And his last film was another horror film, Casino Royale in 1967. Now, unfortunately, he was a really bad alcoholic, and he passed away from cirrhosis of the liver in 1967 at the very young age of 54. But he was always one of my favorite mugs, always one of my favorite henchmen. So anyway, this all happens at the park. The DA is murdered. The cops show up, and Lou is taken into custody. Bud doesn't help much. Why did you do this? I can't believe you did it. Right in front of the cops.
I will not.
Shut your mouth.
I will not. I breathe through my mouth.
Well, breathe through your nose.
Do you breathe through your nose?
Yes.
Then you keep your mouth shut.
They find the gun, and they're handcuffing Lou, and Lou starts crying. And this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's so sweet in a way. He's honestly crying. He can't believe what's happening to him. And it fades out on that. It really is touching. It really is a touching scene. Lou is really proving himself in this one. And he wanted that. He really wanted that. He wanted something different. And boy, did he get it in this one. So they take him to police headquarters. Now, 2 things happen. Bud goes one way, Lou goes the other. Lou is in custody, and he does one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And this is where you see Lou Costello as possibly the best pantomime comedian of his era. He could have done silent films. That's how good he is. They're interrogating him. The police are interrogating him for 18 hours. He hasn't cracked at all. No food, no water, 18 hours under the hot lamp. So finally they give up. The cops leave him alone for a while. So while they leave him alone, this is so bizarre, and this is why I love it so much. It's so out of the blue. He sees that they're gone, and from his pants, he takes a hot water bottle, and he pours it into a cup, and it's coffee. In his pocket, he has sugar, and he puts 2 lumps in the coffee. He takes out his fountain pen, and he empties it into the coffee, and it's milk coming out of each fountain pen. And he stirs up the coffee. He takes out his wallet, and inside his wallet is a sandwich. I mean, it could be bologna or salami, whatever it is. It's a sandwich in his wallet. So he takes it out. He's eating the sandwich. He's drinking his coffee. When he finishes up, he goes over. They turned off the lamp. He goes over and he pulls the lamp over, turns it on, puts his hat on the table with his jacket over it, lays down on the table, fully stretched out, puts on his sunglasses, and turns on the heat lamp and starts tanning himself. So I just think it's wonderful.
I at that moment, I love the scene. Yes, it's marvelously done, but I got a very strong Harpo Marx vibe.
I was just going to say that, Jerry. Get out of my head. If you're going to live in my head, pay rent. Okay? Jeez. I was just going to say it's very Harpo Marx.
Yep.
Everything is taken care of. It's like he planned ahead. What if I'm ever caught without a meal or a cup of coffee? I actually love this. I love it very, very much.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Bud, in the meantime, this is my favorite scene with Bud. Bud is called to Mushy's apartment. Now, here's the deal. Mushy, who is the only one who knows where the money is, he's going to screw Big Frank, basically, and the boys. He's going to take the money himself, and they will launder it in Chicago. He'll give half to Bud if he doesn't say anything, and he'll take half, or he'll give Bud like a good portion of it. So Bud is not into it. He's like, no. And this is weird. This is weird Bud. Bud is standing up to this not only huge behemoth of a man, but a guy who would think nothing of shooting you rather than pat you on the back. He is a killer. And Bud is just, no, I'm not doing that. What are you, crazy? I'm not going to do that. I'm surprised he didn't slap him. But he does punch him.
Yes.
It's not, say diddly. It's a punch. Mushy says one of my favorite lines in the movie is, boy, you've got a lot of nerve. And Bud says, you'd have to go a long way to find anyone more nervous than me. So when Bud finally punches Mushy, Mushy bangs against the wall and takes out his gun, points it at Bud, and he's about to kill him. And Bud is brave. He's taking it like a man. And you hear the gunshot, but then you see Mushy fall. And Bud says my other favorite line.
Mister, that's the worst aim I've ever seen.
And we find out that it was Big Frank and the boys that killed Mushy. They found out that what he was doing, and they believe, this is funny, they believe that Bud knows where the money is, just as much as Mushy did. But Big Frank said, I had to choose between you. It didn't matter really. And Bud says, boy, did you make a mistake, because he has no idea where the money is. So Frank has killed Mushy, hoping that Bud knew where the money was, but he doesn't. So what do? They kidnap Bud. Okay? They figure they're going to get it out of him. So in the meantime, while they're kidnapping Bud, Lou is let go from the police, and he goes home to find it empty. And the kids are gone. Dogface is gone. Birdbraid is gone. And he finds a note from Shelley saying, the welfare people came and took us away. We're going to make it as hard as possible for them, which I loved, so whatever. By the way, I missed out on possibly my favorite scene in the movie. I'm so sorry I didn't mention this earlier. But early on in the movie, Shelley is hanging clothes in the backyard, and she's singing an aria from La Traviata. And it's gorgeous. And it's dubbed by Marnie Nixon, by the way, the famous, voice of the stars.
Of course.
But Lou comes over, he hops the fence, which he always does, and he starts singing with her. He starts singing the counter melody with her, and it's so pretty. And it's him. It's definitely him. I played it back to listen. So I just wanted to mention that now, because it is really, you know how I feel about when Lou is part of a musical number. Well, this one is really sweet. So anyway, Lou comes home. Everybody's gone. He's depressed. He sits down and he falls asleep in his chair. Now, there's a cut sequence here that I can't stand that they cut it. It's such a good idea, and they cut it. Anyway, he dreams during this time. He dreams that he's conducting a full orchestra in white tie and tails, looking great. And Shelley is singing for him, is singing opera for him. And this goes on for a little bit. And all of a sudden, you hear the ukulele. You hear Ernie, and And it starts all over again. He starts hitting him, he's sitting on him, the whole bit. And that's the end of the dream. But it was so lavish compared to the rest of the movie, it would have been a great addition to this. It would have taken us out of it for a moment. Lou would have gotten to do some of his shtick. And actually, it would have been a really, really good idea at this point. But instead, he just falls asleep. And before you know it, the gangsters are at the house and they wake him up and they kidnap him. Now, they take him to Big Frank's hideout. And the cops at this point are following Lou. They let him go, but they're keeping an eye on where he's going, and they see him leaving with the two gangsters, getting in the car, and they follow. And this leads them to Big Frank's hideout. But they're staking it out. They're letting things happen before they infiltrate. So anyway, they got Lou inside. Bud is tied up with tape over his mouth, so he can't say "Certainly." And he's sitting there on the chair, and Lou comes in, and Lou is talking to him and whatever, and Bud is just he can't talk. So what does Lou do? He runs over, he grabs the fireplace poker and makes a little hole in the tape, takes a cigarette and puts it in the little hole and lights it for Bud. And Bud, he's tied up, he can't do anything. So Lou finally gets the hint and rips the tape off of Bud, Ow! And, they're talking, and Bud does not know where the money is. So Big Frank and the boys get this idea. And this was always a little hard for me to watch when I was a kid. They start beating up Lou. Lou is like a third of their size, and Bud is tied up and helpless, and he's watching. They're beating up Lou so Bud will break down and tell them where the money is, little knowing that he has no idea. And they keep punching Lou back and forth, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's very it's gangster stuff. It's serious. So anyway, Bud lies to help Lou to stop it because he can't take it anymore. And I love that because the two of them are partners. The two of them are helping each other, and that's great. So they untie Bud. He's going to take them to the park where he's going to show them where he thinks the money is. And of course, he has no idea. And as they're walking out, Lou takes the rope that Bud was tied up with, and he's carrying it with him out of a secret passageway that leads out of Frank's hideout. The wall opens up. And the gangster's like, "What are you doing with that rope?" And Lou's like, "I collect string." And he takes it out with him. What that does is, once the cops come into Frank's hideout and find nobody there, they see the rope leading to the hideout door. And that I'm assuming that was Lou's idea when he grabbed the rope. So anyway, the cops know where the door is. They go through it. Everybody ends up at Kittyland. Now, it's still after hours. It's dark. Now, one of the things I didn't mention that I have to mention is when the DA was shot by Mushy, there was a little girl named Bootsy. Bootsy? A little girl named Bootsy. Duffer, Bootsy, I don't know. Spreads it out. Lefty, Murray, Sid. No, wait, that's William Morris. All right, anyway, that was so Mel Brooks. But anyway, Bootsy, while she had a habit of sneaking on into the park after hours, she would run away from the orphanage, go to the park, and just be alone, running around. So this was one of the nights she did that, and she saw the murder. She knew. Of course, the cops didn't believe her at all. This is, by the way, she was a Mouseketeer, this little girl, and they had let her go that year. And Lou found out about this and signed her to a management contract and put her in this movie. Also got her to change back to her real name. I think she was Shelley Allen or something like that with the Disney people. And he told her to go back to your original name, which was Shelley Alberoni, an Italian name. No wonder Lou wanted her to go back to it. Yeah, and she's very cute, and I think she does a good job in the movie. But anyway, that was earlier on. So anyway, their gangsters are at the park with Bud and Lou. They're taking them on a wild goose chase, looking for the money. Nobody knows where it is. And one thing leads to another. They end up in the recording booth again. Now, this is interesting to me because Big Frank is there. His boys are there. Bud and Lou are there. And Bud wants to make a recording. He wants to show Big Frank what it is. And he asks for $50, a coin, to put in to record. And he puts his hand in his pocket and he says, I need a half a dollar. And Big Frank says, here you go. And he hands it to him, right? Now, if this were an Abbott and Costello movie, and I mean a real Abbott and Costello movie, Bud would have gone, well, you need a half an hour. He would have put his hand in the pocket and said, Lou, give him a half a dollar, right? And Lou would say, you always put your hand in your pocket and you never come out with nothing. No, it wasn't there. It was over, kids. It was over. And this was proof. Anyway, they put the thing in, they start the record, and Bud doesn't think Big Frank knows what he's doing. And Bud's trying to get a confession out of him to put on the record. And Big Frank knows what he's doing. And he actually sarcastically takes the mic from Bud's hand and makes the confession. And I mean fully, full out. And it's on the record. And then he says, okay, now give me that record. And they drop it into a pile of other records. And Bud grabs it and the chase is on. They have to get that record because it's got Big Frank's confession on it. And there were witnesses. So this is my problem with this. Big Frank is the head of this organized crime, the entire city. He's the head of it. He would put a confession on a record in front of people. And then at the end, he gives that same confession to the cop, who's arresting him. I think it's because he knew that the confession was on the record and they would have heard it. But anyway, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So what happens is, if you've ever seen the movie The Good Humor Man with Jack Carson, Frank Tashlin script, directed by Roy Del Ruth, it's basically the same kind of ending. All the kids show up to subdue the crooks. And nothing is more deadly than a bunch of kids with baseball bats. I'm telling you. These kids are deadly. And in The Good Humor Man, it's even worse. They are just deadly. That's an interesting movie because George Reeves is the bad guy and he's horrible. I love him. But anyway, so the kids they show up to help Bud and Lou. They've got baseball bats at the shins. They've got water guns squirting the guys in the eyes. One guy gets cotton candy in his face. And then there's this little kid. I call him, and please don't get mad at me, but I call him the slow kid. He's walking around with a pot in his hand, and he's hitting the guys on the head with this pot. Kong! He's a cute little kid, but he seems a little off somehow. Didn't you find that, Jerry? He was a little kind of...
Yeah, he's always the last one to show up. The kids all come running through in a group, beat, and then he comes running, following them,
Yes, exactly, with this really dumb look on his face. Yeah. All right, so the kids are there, whatever. They go through the whole thing. They throw darts in Big Frank's ass. I mean, I love when he pulls it out and he tests it just to see what it is. Yeah. It's like he had this dart in there. So anyway, the kids actually are successful in subduing the crooks. The cops show up. The crooks are arrested. Big Frank makes his big confession. Again. I don't know about that part of it. Bud and Lou grab the record and say, cops, you have to hear this. Here we go. We've got the whole confession. They put it on. And what is it? But it's Dance With Me, Henry, the rock and roll song. Mm-hmm. So they did all that chasing for nothing, basically. One of the things during the chase is Bud puts Lou on the Ferris wheel, hands him the record and says, all right, now get lost, and starts the Ferris wheel. And Lou says, how do you get lost on a Ferris wheel? It's so true. It was funny. But anyway, so the cops come, blah, blah, blah. They put on the record. All the kids start dancing, their rock and roll dance. Even Bud and Lou start dancing, which is an image I really, really like. So anyway, we cut to Lou's backyard. And Father Mahoivan is there with, Shelley is there and Duffer and Bootsy and all the other cute name people. And Father Mahoivan thanks Bud because they gave the entire $10,000 reward that they got to the orphanage. And they're throwing this big party for all the kids. And all of a sudden you hear a fife and you look over, and coming up the sidewalk with a little hat and the feather in the hat, playing the Pied Piper is Lou. And all the kids from the orphanage are in line following him to the party. So basically, Lou is the Pied Piper for all the children. And I wrote in the book, basically, that's what he was. He was a Pied Piper for children. Certainly this child, I'll tell you that much. And it's okay. The ending is a little treacly. It's a little sugary, uh, but it works. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it
it
does.
works.
It
You know,
does.
it's a very warm, sweet ending to the film careers of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. That was it. Bye bye. The end. Fascinating at the closing credits. Did you catch it?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. I've got a huge note on my pad right here.
Lou
Uh,
Costello got top billing,
yes. The
right?
first time 37 movies.
Absolutely. And yeah, Lou Costello and then Bud Abbott, which is basically the way it should be because it is more of a Lou movie
Oh,
than a
yeah.
Bud movie. But it's not in the opening credits. It's still Bud
No.
Abbott and Lou Costello. But I found that interesting. To me, it seemed like Lou wanted to try it. He wanted to see what it
Mm-hmm.
looked like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I think he was seeing the writing on the wall more than Bud was as far as their partnership.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I wanted to go into some interesting things.
Okay.
Some things happened during the preparation for this film. Like I say, the last shooting day was June 22nd, 1956, and it wasn't released until December 14th, 1956. So there was that time between, that's 6 months. And in that time, in November, they were inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Lou thought it was more important and more impressive than getting an Oscar.
Mm.
They put a recording of their Who's on First on the wall there in Cooperstown, and they run on a loop all day and all night Who's on First from the Naughty 90s. They were thrilled. Lou is like, I'm here with Ty Cobb's bat and Babe Ruth's uniform is number 3, and we're here too. It's amazing, and it
Yeah.
is amazing. I've been there a couple of times, and their presence is felt. Let's put it that way. And felt is one of the few materials they didn't use in their act. Anyway, so the other thing that was terrible. The other thing that happened was less happy. And that was in November of that year. Lou was honored on This Is Your Life, by Ralph Edwards, one of the most
Mm-hmm.
obnoxious people ever to step before a camera. Seriously, it's like like Chico says in room service, I wish I had a license to hunt him. But he's the most exploitative and overly gregarious, a real
Oh, yeah.
game show host. But anyway, Lou was being honored, and they surprised him while they were filming a coming attraction, a trailer for Dance with Me, Henry. And it's interesting that in this movie, they tried their best not to do any of the old routines, and they don't. Yet in the trailer, they started by doing Who's on First and
Yes.
then drifting into Dance with Me, Henry. It's interesting. But anyway, Lou looks seriously shocked when Ralph Edwards shows up and surprises him, and not a happy shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I try to put myself in his head and looking at his eyes, and right away I go right to, oh, damn it. Now they're going to go over Lou Jr.'s death in front of the audience, in front of me. You know what I mean? It's like there's just too much there
Yeah.
for him to feel comfortable about. But anyway, he got into the swing of things. But two things I noticed more than anything. Number one, he truly was a hero to children, especially children who were in the hospital, children who couldn't afford treatment. He would pick up the newspaper in the morning. If he saw something along those lines, he would anonymously take care of it. He would pick up the phone and call Eddie Sherman and say, this person, take care of them. Okay. There were people whose lives he saved on the show. It's really, really touching, and it's tear inducing almost. But then Eddie Sherman comes out, and of course he does the Lou Jr. section. They're playing music from Pagliacci in the background.
Mm.
So just in case you don't catch the fact that it's a sad thing, and Lou looks like, just shoot me. It's terrible. But then Bud comes out. And, backstage, they always do the voice first and the person guesses who it is. Well, you hear Bud clearly say, we had a bad riff back in 1945 and we thought it was, the end of the thing, but we finally came to our senses. Anyway, he comes out And he's got his, hands on Lou's shoulders, and he definitely looks more, how can I put this? He looks more attentive towards Lou than Lou looks towards him. Lou almost looks disinterested in a way. But Bud is clearly insecure about their partnership at this point, and it shows. Bud is really trying to, I'm so glad we preserved our friendship and our partnership and da 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 da. Da. And Lou could only make a joke about Martin and Lewis. That was really where he went. It's like, and neither of us can sing, whatever it was. And it's uncomfortable. And it's the harbinger of what's to come. Now, I was going to talk about this now because it is basically life changing for them. Their next gig, okay? They filmed this movie. There wasn't much in the offering at this point. The Sands Hotel in Las Vegas decided to do an original show called Milltown Revisited. And basically, it was a burlesque kind of variety show, but with none of the old routines, all new stuff, except for Who's on First. They saved to the end for the finale. But this was written by one of the Ritz brothers, old writer, Sid Culler. And he wrote and produced the show. And he says that the fateful night was true, that on opening night, they did their early show. It went over beautifully, standing ovation. And then there was like 4 hours between the next show. There was like a midnight show. And Bud, who was a gambler, just like Lou, but Bud had more of a problem. He went to the gambling tables and they're feeding him drinks, drink after drink after drink. And before you know it, he's blotto. And Sid Culler says that he went on stage that way. And he didn't even remember the lines to Who's on First. And Lou is just livid. And he went backstage after the show screaming at Eddie Sherman, I will not work with him again. He will never do this to me again. It's over, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the head of entertainment at the Sands. And his name was Stan Irwin, who actually did the voice of Lou on those awful cartoons. Hey, Abbott! That was Stan Irwin. And he was the head of entertainment at the Sands. And he tells an entirely different story. It's so weird. He says that all during rehearsal, Bud was slow. His timing was off. He was slurring his words. It was bothering Lou. It was throwing his game off. And Bud did not want to learn the new material. He wasn't retaining it. And he kept complaining, why don't we do, pack and unpack? Or why don't we do 7 times 13 or whatever? He just wanted to do the old routines. Well, anyway, this was the end of the line. Whether it was the drunk thing or whether it was just Bud not being up to it, they finished the gig. It was a big success, but Lou did not want to be part of a team anymore. And he told Bud at the end, maybe we should go our separate ways. And Bud was pretty much complacent. He was like, okay, I'll wait for you. If that's what you want, I'll wait for you. He wasn't ready to retire. He couldn't. He owed too much money to the government. This was a hell of a time to split up the act because Bud couldn't just like Lou could just go to the Steve Allen show and start doing routines with other people. Bud couldn't do that. Bud was the straight man. The straight man, unless you could sing like Dean Martin, you didn't have much of a life after the team. So poor Bud really sat by the phone. Eddie Sherman eventually stopped returning his calls. He tried to team up with Candy Candido, the trick voice comedian. I'm feeling mighty low. And then he'd go way up there. So it was Abbott and Candido for a very short time. Apparently their earliest gigs were a big success, but Bud was not healthy enough. He was not healthy. He had to put a stop to it, basically. And he didn't work again until the GE Theater. He did a half-hour episode with Lee Marvin, who was the star of the episode. Bud played a supporting role as his agent, and he was quite good, actually. He comports himself quite well. Unfortunately, there was not much after that. He did the cartoon voices. He couldn't have made that much money at Hanna-Barbera, and pretty much sat out the rest of his life in a rented house in Woodland Hills, a small house, after he had to sell everything he owned to pay back the government. And that was that. We'll get to the very end as we go on, because we still have some more movies to look at. But Lou, at this point, was looking for the next thing. he was being extremely careful about choosing his next movie because he wanted it to be something serious, something that was as far removed from the slapstick stuff he was doing as possible. And he wanted to recreate himself in the industry. So throughout 1957, he made appearances on every variety show you can mention. He was on the Rosemary Clooney show. He did the Steve Allen show like 10 times. He was on I've Got a Secret. He was single comedian Lou Costello from then on. He did a GE theater. I just watched it again the other night. It's not bad. Jonathan Harris is in it. Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. Oh, the pain, Lou. And he did that one, but he was the star as opposed to Bud being the supporting character in his episode. He did an episode of Wagon Train that is just wonderful. There, he got to show everybody what he could do, that he wasn't just a slapstick comedian, that he had the acting chops that it took. It's a great episode. It's called The Tobias Jones Story. He plays a drunken tramp, really, who takes on this little girl, and they were stowaways on the wagon train. And eventually he's accused of killing someone. It's a really, really good episode. And Lou is fantastic. But anyway, this is all stuff he did later on. And this is where we're at this point. The next movie he made, and we're going to be looking at that next time, is The 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock. Unfortunately, that was the only movie he was offered at the time. There were other things mentioned, and we'll go into this in the next episode. But we're going to look at The 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock, Lou's only solo film. And it was made the same year that we lost him, unfortunately. In fact, he wasn't alive when it was released. So there we go. What a jolly thing to go off on. So Abbott and Costello have come to the end of their 16-year film career, where they were always on the popularity list as far as moviegoers. I think the worst they ever were was like number 20 at the box office, but mostly they were in the top 10, which is an incredible accomplishment. But this was it for Bud and Lou. This was United Artists released it. It didn't do as well as they had hoped, unfortunately. I'm sure that the ad campaigns were not the best. There were a slew of posters that went out depicting a scene that wasn't even in the movie. Apparently, I'm not sure if they shot it, but Lou gets connected to a helium tank and he blows up like the people I mentioned earlier in Son of Flubber, and he floats away. But unfortunately, that's what's shown in the posters, and it's not in the movie. That's weird. That's just weird. But you found this movie on the bottom half of a double bill. You know, it was definitely the end of the line for the boys. But I have to say, and this is my final assessment before I hand it over to Jerry, I like the movie. I think it's a good movie. I think it's better than Lost in Alaska. I think it's better than Jekyll and Hyde. I think it's better than Africa Screams. It's actually a movie that draws you in. It's completely different from anything they have ever done before, even Little Giant, Time of Their Lives. This is completely different. I like the fact that the gangsters are real and they're a real threat. And I like Lou's persona as a sitcom dad, you know, because you could see what really was going to happen in the future. People are always asking me, do you think Abbott and Costello would have gotten back together again? No, they wouldn't have. Bud was past it at that point. Lou was 9 years younger. Bud was an old 60, 61, 62. The years of smoking and drinking took their toll. And that's that. So that's the end of this episode. And we hope you enjoyed it. And don't be too sad, because we'll be back to do more. And I just want to mention one thing before I turn this over to Jerry. Congratulations on being cast in your show. Again, he's in Miracle on 34th Street, and he's heading to New York for rehearsals on October 18th into early November. And I just want to wish you every good thing, Jerry. I'm just thrilled for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It'll be an adventure. And it'll be an enjoyable one, mostly because my wife is coming along as well. She's going to be working backstage.
Wonderful.
On stage. Yeah. So I know who my roommate is going to be on the tour.
You know what? And that's a good thing.
Yes.
That's a very good thing. Oh, that's great. That's really wonderful. So, all right. So getting back to the movie, I want to hear your assessment, because you told me you saw this a long time ago, and you only recently saw it again
Yes.
for this show, for this episode. So tell me what you thought.
I honestly can't remember the first time that I saw it. It was quite some time ago. And then I watched it just yesterday to have it fresh in my mind for recording today. And yeah, I agree in that it is a marvelous little film. It's very different, yes, as we've said. And it makes me wish they had done more of this kind of thing because they do it well. And you mentioned the scene after the police interrogation where Lou's, having his snack. That had me on the floor.
I love that.
Another gag that got me completely. It's when Bud's tied up with the tape over his mouth and the gangsters leave the room hoping that they'll hear something. And Lou's trying to talk to him, but oblivious to the tape and the rope. But he seems to understand what Bud is saying. What happened here? Really? Why did they do that? And then at one point he rips the tape off of Bud's mouth, asks him another question. Bud gives him the answer, and Lou says, "Huh? What? Wait." Puts the tape back on, and Bud goes, "You mean they did?"
It only shows you that Lou's from another planet. He's not back from Mars yet.
But yeah, it's an enjoyable film. And I know you've made this statement. You make it in the book, I believe, and you and I have talked about it a bit. Unlike many other comics comedy teams, their last movie is the one that pretty much unanimously people say, no. Not this one.
Mm-mm.
Not this one.
I agree. I think they went out on a high note. And in interviews at that time with Lou, he is indicating that this was their future, that he was staying with Bud and they were going to be making movies along these lines and hopefully written by Devery Freeman because they really enjoyed the script. So you're very on the money there when you say that you wish there were more of these kind of movies, because there would have been had Bud not pissed off Lou in Las Vegas. But unfortunately, that was the case. I agree with you, Jerry. I think we're in full agreement on this movie. And I've heard from a bunch of our listeners who agree with us as well, saying that this is a fine little movie, not a big deal. And they got it made for less than $500,000. So they must have made money, but I don't think they made as much as they'd hoped.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week, Bud Abbott is gone. He's in Woodland Hills, while Lou goes to Columbia Studios, the home of the Three Stooges, to make a movie that to me is maybe more in line with the Three Stooges than Lou Costello. But we will talk all about that in our next episode, The 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock. Jerry, I want to wish you the best. And again, congratulations on your walk this morning. I'm still impressed by that.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you again.
And you as well, sir. I give the same response back to you and wish you the best. You're going to be traveling in the next week or so, heading back toward your home. And
yes.
I just wish you, safe travel, Godspeed, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much, Jerry. And to all of you out there listening, please subscribe. It's very important that you subscribe to the channel. Okay? I'm still below 500 subscribers, and I know there's more people out there listening. So please, please, please take the half a second it takes to hit that button and press like if you like it. If you don't like it, then don't listen to it. Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Which makes perfect sense. Okay, you guys, take care. We will see you next time on Abbott and Costello Meet the Podcast.